As we all know, this season, the flavor of our subclass that we're going to be using the most of is going to be Arc, and that is because our artifact has a majority of Arc-based mods that we're going to be able to play around with. For Hunters, they have the ability to melee, get their health back, do a ton of damage. Titans have so many different builds that they can take advantage of this season, and Warlocks, you have a few. One of which is what we're going to be talking about today, with the buff that came to Chaos Reach at the beginning of the season. This means that Geomags are back on the table. So with that, like, comment, and subscribe, and let's have a quick word from our sponsors. Now, because this is a Chaos Reach build, we're going to be using the exotic Geomag Stabilizers, which comes with a trait Close Enough, which reads damaging targets with Chaos Reach extends its duration. This perk is very nice, as not only is it the life motto that I live by, but it allows us to essentially double our duration with Chaos Reach, and that means we will almost double our damage with our super, which is really good against champions and bosses. This exotic used to be much better back when we could sprint and top our super back off when we were almost full. Now, even though the exotic itself is a shell of its former self, Chaos Reach got some good loving at the beginning of the season and now does 25% more damage inside of PvE, as well as making a jolting lightning bolt strike on targets that you continuously damage, making it a better tool to deal with those single high health targets like champions and boss. Now, it's still not the boss melter people want it to be or what it used to be. However, against champions, it is extremely helpful, as you can still deactivate your super and get some of it back, which again, very helpful for high-end content where you just go from champion to champion. When it comes to weapons to pair with this build, you can honestly use anything you want, but for the background gameplay you're seeing, I dusted off a relic from my vault, and that is going to be Symmetry. Now, I'm going to talk about this weapon because of how well it performed and how much it surprised me. Symmetry is an Arc Scout rifle you get from the Lost Light kiosk in the tower. It's that thing that sits between the vaults. Since it's an arc weapon, it plays into our class, our armor mods, and even our artifact very well. And because it's a scout rifle, we can use the overload scout rifle mod with it and have it be useful for overload champions. It has the exotic trait Revolution. This weapon fires in full auto, hold reload to swap to Arc Seeker mode. Arc Seekers track towards combatants that you target. These Arc Seekers are honestly very good, as they also do a tiny bit of splash damage, which can be increased by its other trait, Dynamic Charge. Precision hits build up Dynamic Charge. Swapping to Arc Seeker mode increases the damage and partially reloads the magazine based on the number of charges. This damage ramps up very quickly, and with the Catalyst you can get this up to a times 20 bonus, which last I knew was like a 600% bonus inside of PvP to the base weapon damage for 20 seconds. However, it's been a while since I've used this weapon and I haven't really kept up with it, so that could have changed. So if it has changed, let me know down in the comments and I will pin that. Either way, it is a very good option to use this season in our higher end content. As for our artifact, we have a ton of mods that play into our Arc subclass. The first thing we're going to take though is going to be our Arc and melee authorization mod, so this way we can make the mods related to those particular things a lot cheaper, so we can stack what we need to stack in our armor. We are then going to take electric armor, which reads stay amplified longer while your Arc subclass is equipped. This will allow us to stay amplified for up to 20 seconds to take advantage of all the stuff that our class would give us, as well as the next mod, Thunderous Retort, which grants bonus Arc super damage if cast while critically wounded or while amplified. Lasts until the end of super activation. Since we will be easily amplified for a longer duration from our class setup and with the electric armor, we can take advantage of this bonus damage for our Chaos Reach, as this will increase our damage by roughly 100%, and with Geomags we'll be able to deal that damage longer with its 100% duration, meaning we're going to deal double damage for double the time, which is going to be amazing against champions and even certain bosses. Next we have Amped Up, which is gain damage resistance while amplified. This resistance is very nice to have and has saved me quite often with our class setup. Now, I know that Amped Up and electric armor's names are supposed to be swapped, but in the game that's how it reads, so that's how we're going to go with it. Moving on to our last column, we have Shock and Awe. Arc final blows while you're amplified, summoning a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. This is one of my favorite artifact perks this season, as any Arc final blow does this. It could be a weapon, an ability, your super. It does amazingly with everything we're using this season and does really good at clearing out as, which leads us to our final perk, which is Lightning Strike clicks twice. After throwing an arc grenade, gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. Arc final blows extend the duration of this benefit. This will help with our grenade generation and ionic trace generation for our class setup, which we're going to start with electrostatic mind, which will make it so when we defeat jolted or blinded targets, or even with any ability, we will make an ionic trace, which will make us amplified to feedback into all of our artifact mods. We're also going to run arc souls, which whenever we place a rift, we get a little arc buddy that will track and shoot targets, and while amplified, they will be enhanced and shoot faster. These also count as an ability, so we can make ionic traces to feed into electrostatic mind to make us amplified. As for fragments, we're going to start with Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage with a +10 to our strength. This fragment is very helpful, as it helps me a lot with the newer activities, as they have a ton of add density, which is really nice, but this means we need to find ways to survive, and Spark of Resistance is a very good way to do that, as it stacks with the perk from the artifact. We then have Spark of Instinct. While critically wounded, taking damage emits a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets. Now, while the damage resistance is nice from the previous combo, it doesn't make you invincible, so this fragment helps with dealing with targets that get too close, and can even make it that if you get sniped from a distance, you can have a little bit of safety from melee attacks. Also, if something dies from this, it will also make an ionic trace. Moving on, we have Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace with a -10 to strength. We're using Symmetry, which is an arc weapon to help us make these ionic traces, and Symmetry has that tracking feature, which makes it a lot easier. Now, ionic traces are very nice because they feed into our abilities and our artifact perk. I highly recommend that if you don't use Symmetry, at least use some type of arc weapon for this fragment, because ionic traces are very nice, especially for this build. And finally, we have Spark of Shock. Your arc grenade jolts targets with a -10 to discipline. Jolt is extremely powerful even after the nerf it got at the beginning of the season, and it is easily a top tier choice when dealing with adds, and it has the ability to stun overload champions, meaning whatever grenade you run now instantly becomes a champion stunning grenade. Moving on to our armor mods. On our helmet, we're going to run hands on so we can get some super energy, we can get kills with our melee. You can swap this out for ashes to assets if you want to run more of a grenade focus for this build. I also ran Arc Siphon. Since we're running an arc weapon, we can make orbs that will feed into our other things as well. I also ran Font of Wisdom to get that max intellect for the duration of our armor charge, so we can try to get our chaos reach back as quickly and as frequently as possible. On our arms, we have heavy-handed to make orbs with our melee. However, I definitely should have used firepower so our grenades can make orbs, as I use them way more often than our melee. Impact induction, so our melee damage can give us that extra grenade energy. I also have Font of Focus so we can get max discipline for the duration of our armor charge. For our chest, I just ran resist mods, as we don't need to hold extra stacks of armor charge for this build, as we're not running a build to spend any. Spoiler alert, if you were looking forward to some kind of kickstart mod, doesn't exist in this build. On our legs, we have elemental charge, so when we pick up an ionic trace, we have a chance to get a stack of armor charge, and we will basically be making a never-ending supply of ionic traces, so we will be able to have armor stacks constantly. We also have 2 stacks of the arc weapon surge mods to get some extra damage out of our arc weapons, like Symmetry and whatever you want to use for a heavy. On our bond, we have Reaper, so when we get a kill after placing a rift, we'll make an orb, and we'll be placing rifts constantly to get our arc souls to help us. Time dilation, so our armor stacks last longer to get the benefits from wisdom and focus and our surge mods. And finally, I just had an extra bomber mod because I don't like having empty slots, and the extra grenade energy is very helpful. Now, I use the particular font mods in this build because my armor stats are garbage for those 2 particular stats, so you can swap out these font mods for whichever one you need with your stat distribution. They are very helpful as they max out whatever stat you have them in. And with that, that is the end of our Arc Warlock Chaos Reach build video. This was actually a pretty fun one to put together, as I had an other idea for an Arc Warlock build that I'm now going to push back later in the season, closer to Grandmaster time, as someone actually wanted a Geomags build, and it's been a very long time since I've actually had a request for a build, which is very nice. And that leads me to say that if you do want to see a particular build on the channel, all you guys have to do is let me know and I will make it. With that though, like, comment, and subscribe if you want me to make those and you want to see those builds come to fruition. Check those links down in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.